Today I want to talk about the Fate RPG system. Fate is a generic system, a narrative-focused system based on the older Fudge system. It uses just four six-sided dice, and the dice mechanic is you roll these four dice, and a 5 or 6 will give you a plus to your roll, a 3 or 4 a 0, and a 1 or 2 minus 1. And you add these up, and any remaining pluses will be a bonus to your roll, and any remaining minuses a minus. It's a simple enough dice system, and it produces the most average rolls I have ever experienced in a role-playing system. Very rarely do you have a situation where you get a +2, +3, +4, or -4 or something. Usually you end up somewhere in the range of 0 or ±1. That is, most rolls are in the range from -1 to +1. Adding to these dice rolls are your skill scores, something like stealth or fighting, and often a situational modifier if you're triggering an aspect. And aspects is where the main meat and potatoes of the system lies. In Fate, everything can be an aspect. You start when you're creating your world. Your world will have aspects like a Victorian steampunk crime drama with undead. Then you've got the aspects of Victorian period, steampunk, and undead, and you can use that in the game when you want to do something, when you want to come up with something. A situation will have aspects like a dark, rainy night. And then you've got the aspects of the rain that will make everything wet and slippery and maybe cold, maybe fire don't burn. And it's dark, so you can't see very well. But maybe sneaking is easier because it's dark and rainy, so no one can hear or see you. Furthermore, NPCs will have aspects like a underpaid policeman, corrupt underpaid policeman, or an eager young hero. Finally, your player characters will be made up of several aspects, like deserter of the Knights of the Round Table, or an opium-dependent failed spellcaster. And you as a player can trigger these aspects of the world, the situation, the NPC, and your character to gain an additional +2 on your skill checks. And for that, you have to describe how you will trigger that aspect and then spend a fate point. And you gain these fate points when the GM triggers an aspect, situational, NPC, one of yours, and you get a -2 or fail outright in your rolls. So what this is supposed to do is that there's a constant flux of fate points from the player to the GM and vice versa by triggering all of these aspects. And what this should do is that you think about a situation in a narrative context using all of these aspects to resolve the action rather than staring at your spell list, skill list, or weapons, the terrain, and come up with clever combat tactics. No, the narrative is important in Fate. And I do enjoy a narrative-focused game. I'm a big fan of Powered by the Apocalypse, for example. And it is fun to create characters in Fate and come up with these different aspects for a character. Fate is a system where you can play character concepts that just wouldn't work in any other system because they would be too weak, too broken. For example, I played a one-armed alcoholic veteran from the last war, and I was still the best fighter in the group. And then my character arc became overcoming these scars of war and go back to be the shining hero. And Fate makes you think about character arcs, your interaction with NPCs and the world, because you're rewarded with advancement, with character advancements for doing so. But actually playing Fate for about a year, my group found that we don't really need most of the systems that the game presents. For us, triggering aspects and giving out and receiving fate points became negligent, because we have been playing this narrative way for years without ever needing fate points. If it's a dark and stormy night and the GM is describing that, then the GM can just modify the difficulty of any skill check, anything that you are doing. And you can just incorporate these elements into what you are doing, into your narrative. And then you will get the bonus on your sneak and break-in attempts. Or the floor will be slippery, and when you roll a fumble during combat, you slip and fall. And we are doing all this triggering of aspects, all this narrative game mechanics. We just did it intuitively. We didn't need all these rules for that. So most of the system just was never used by it. And if you're not using all of this aspects, narrative, game mechanics, all that is left is a very basic skill system and resolution mechanic. I think Fate excels at two things. It's very easy to get started and adjust the system to any scenario, even completely out there scenarios. If you play, let's say, Cthulhian superheroes in space, you can do it relatively easy in Fate. Or you can play cats, pets, stuffed toys. Just define the aspects of your world and your characters and assign your skill points, and you're good to go, no matter the setting. Secondly, I think Fate is a good system to teach people how to play this narrative style if they are coming more from a war game or board game, a dungeon crawler, a very combat and rule focused D&D or other game, and are just not familiar with all these role-playing aspects. Then Fate is a good system to teach these aspects and how to think about a situation and a bigger overarching narrative, how to think about your characters. So what I take away from Fate is that I like my world, situations and characters to have aspects, but I don't need all the rule systems with triggering and fate points behind that to make use of all these aspects. I can just do this intuitively, and I will have a richer game because of it. But it's just my opinion. Do you know the Fate system? Do you like it or hate it? Do you take aspects of the rules into other systems? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.